Good morning and welcome to Seattle Atheist Church. Atheist, agnostic, skeptic, whatever you call yourself, you are welcome here. At Seattle Atheist Church, we call ourselves an atheist church because you will never hear anything supernatural promoted from the podium. This is our creed. Seattle Atheist Church was founded on the principles of scientific naturalism and secular ethics. Truth claims are attempted here, and we stand ready to revise our thinking in light of new information. We attempt to be excellent to all conscious beings, and we believe in good, because good works in non-mysterious ways. If that sounds right to you, then you are probably in the right place. So the way that we do it is that our members ourselves give the talks, and there's no dues or anything like that, but if you'd like to continue to have these meetings, so I don't see Jack and Troy right now, but they're here. Oh, there's Troy. Okay, so we do, if you want to give a donation, you can, and the only thing that the donation is used, there's a jar in the back over there by the coffee. That's actually for the room, just so we can rent the room, okay? Feel free to help yourself to snacks and coffee. And the second Sunday of the month, we're going to have board games. That is at the Roosevelt Coffee House on 65th and Roosevelt. And before that, the first Friday of the month, we will have our movie night. So you have to sign up now if you would like to, join us for the movie night. Do you know what the movie's going to be?
Jane Goodall.
No, we already had Jane.
Oh, you had it?
I actually don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not sure where the movie is, but it's lots of fun. So anyway, without further ado, today Michael is going to be giving the talk on Aristotle. Welcome, Michael.
Would Aristotle be a social democrat? Well, we'll see. Noam Chomsky thinks so. He was asked once what he thought Aristotle would be if he came back here today. He said, oh, he would favor a welfare state. Now, he has a political view. If he did come back and he was a social democrat, he would favor democracy, but he had a peculiar notion of democracy. And that was just pretty bad, but it was better than anything else. So he had sort of an upside down view from what we might have. But I think he had a point worth considering anyway. So how does he come to this conclusion? Well, there are a couple of concepts we have to understand before we get further with his theory. And one of them is community. How many people here believe that a human being can live outside a community very long? One person.
I wouldn't want to. Even if I could, I wouldn't want to.
How many people believe you could be happy outside of community? If there's any possibility at all? Three, thank you. Aristotle thought that if you're outside of a community, you wouldn't last very long. There were natural problems and enemies and diseases and so on, and problems with maintaining a food diet and so for a human being, not for a panther, but for a human being, yes. And also, human beings seem to be a social animal. That is, we not only care for ourselves, we take care of ourselves, but we take care of others that we love, that we're attached to. And this contributes to our happiness. And we also contribute to our community. And by doing that, we fame, adulation, praise. But we respond to that as well, and that's why our communities are ubiquitous. We almost all humans, everywhere you go, live in communities. So you might say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So one firm thing was community, and another firm belief was that the leaders of the community had to win the support of the people in the community in order to survive. The community could not survive if it didn't reach if it didn't have support from its members at least to an adequate degree to survive. Now, that presents a problem because when people have the power, they tend to hoard the wealth. The wealth tends to gravitate up to the top. And when it gravitates up to the top, the people on the bottom tend to become slaves. So you have this gradual movement, and the people on the top don't believe this. They explain it away. They don't think it's happening. But when they make individual decisions, if you look at over time, if you look at where the money goes, follow the money, it goes up. The people on the bottom have an advantage in that there are so many of them. But they tend to they want to make slaves of people on the top. The people on the top should feel privileged to go out and work for the community. In fact, instead of computer programmers getting a big salary, they should pay to be a computer programmer because it's so much fun. Anybody who's belonged to a union shop knows the problem. The unions, in order to win elections, especially in the United States, the unions will pander to individual members who have enough pull in the union, and to give special privileges, like a person can't be fired on the railroad. The fireman couldn't be fired even though we don't want coal cars. And it goes on and on. So there is a push from the bottom against the top. And what you have is a balance. Depending on who has how much power, there's a push and shove each way. It goes on and on. Push and shove, up and down. So that was another one of his theories. Now, he thought that the top priority was for the community to survive. And the reason was if the community didn't survive, it wasn't strong enough. It could be, for example, taken over by foreign invaders. And in Greece, what that meant killing all the men and enslaving the children and the women. So the survival of the community was more important than the risk that an individual took in defending the community. The death was worse than being conquered. So the risk was worth it. Now, the community, the magistrates also had to defend themselves against the enemy within. There was the enemy without and the enemy within. And the enemy within, of course, are people who are dissatisfied with the current government. So how did the magistrates win over the people? The largest number of people? Well, they did it by making them happy. We're trying to make them happy. We're trying to create a community, a city, in which a person could pursue fulfilling his what he called eudaimonia, or well-being, or flourishing, prosperity. Now, in order to, given this background, Aristotle looks at three possible kinds of government. And he wants to decide which one is best. By the way, his students were sent out to 160 different city-states and drew up a constitution for each one of them based on what was going on with their observations. And Aristotle used his famous classification method in order to figure out empirically which community would survive best and under which circumstance. So now the only constitution we have left is the Constitution for Athens. And the only reason why we had that is because it was used to wrap up a mummy. When it was unwrapped, there was the Constitution of Athens. Now, the one form of government he considers is a monarchy. Monarchy means one. The rule of one person. And he says, well, if you could find a person who is absolutely good and knows everything, make him king. Give him all the power. Because if he has all the power, he will know what to do because he knows everything. And since he's all good, he will do the right thing. Because the good is defined as the right thing. Whatever that is. Now, we all know that he wrote to hell his paper with good intentions, and so did Aristotle. And we all know that even if a person is good, he can make a lot of big mistakes. Adolf Hitler is a good example of that. The person who felt, at least he believed he was doing the right thing, and he believed he was doing a good thing. And a lot of people went along with it. But it didn't work out. It didn't work out that way. He made too many mistakes. So he thinks that the theoretical monarchy, the ideal leads in practice to a tyranny. You get the guy in there, and you can't get rid of him. You mentioned this big mistake that you can't do anything about it, or you don't even know about it because he controls the information. So that's out. He says that will do. The next form of government he looks at is an aristocracy. Now, this is the rule of the best, the wisest. So hopefully they would correct each other's mistakes. They wouldn't be as bad as a tyrant. But the problem here is that the aristocrats have a tendency to hoard the wealth. The wealth of the community tends to drift up to the oligarchs. And the more power the oligarchs have, the more wealth they have, the more they are able to get more money shifted their way and more power shifted their way. So in what you end up with is an oligarchy. So you go from aristocracy is the best, Aristo means the best, to the oligarchy. Only means the many, the few. It means few. So he thinks that this will be unstable. This will lead to a fall of the community because the oligarchs eventually take so much wealth that they piss everybody else off. And these people who are angry overthrow the government, who support the city. So the city becomes too weak to defend itself against its neighbors, and it doesn't support the government internally. So you have a breakdown in the community. People don't trust each other. They don't obey the laws. Stealing, murders, laws like that. So he thinks that so he's against oligarchy. He says that just doesn't work out, at least in a city like Athens. He sees that other places where it might work, but in a city like Athens, it wouldn't work. Then the next kind of government he thought is a polity. Now the polity is a democracy in which people vote in their true best interest and the true interest of the community, because the people are so wise. Unfortunately, the people are not so wise. But so what you have instead is a rule by the people, which is a democracy. By the way, I was saying that Trump would win the election because of my knowledge of Aristotle. He would have no problem understanding exactly what Trump is all about. And I felt that someone like Trump would win for 40, 50 years. Because of my study in Nazi Germany and how public opinion could be shifted and how much opposition there was to Hitler and how what he did broke down the community and led to the destruction of Germany. All of this makes perfect sense to Aristotle, but not to Harry Truman. But he says that even though democracy in theory is the worst, but in practice it's the best, because it can check the leaders when the leaders step on too many toes, when the leaders go too far, when the people can't eat anymore, their allegiance tends to waver. And that brings down the community, the state, because the people refuse to support the government. So his solution back then in Athens was to limit the wealth of the oligarchs, limit the rich. And he tried to dream up various means of doing this. One, for example, taxing them and using taxes to build a monument to a god which would have their name on it, the rich man's name on it, the way we have names on our hospitals. And or he could purchase and a trireme for the Navy and pay all the sailors, and that would be his company. Company of sailors. So, and he tried other ways, other plans, which we're not entirely get the job done. But this is back in Athens, and that's all he could think of back then. There was nothing else he could do. But bring it up to modern times, he would definitely support the 92% income tax during World War II and the 70% income tax after Kennedy, which was later lowered to 35% by Reagan and his buddies. And we can see what result that's had. on the stability of the country, on the relationship of people with each other in the community, and on the effects of the people overseas or allies, and adversaries. So he was right about that, but he couldn't come up with a good solution back then. Or he came up with the best solution. Athens was probably better than most of the other communities. Then so another thing he argued for was eliminating poverty. Because when people are poor and they're starving, they become angry and revolutionary and hard to manage. So he thought the poor should be eliminated by policies that provided work and provided food in time of famine. It's, public stores of food prepared for famine. They should prepare for these kinds of things to get people back up on their feet. So his picture was a kind of a middle. I guess we've heard that before about Aristotle, the middle, where there's no extremes. There's no very rich people, there's no very poor people. And that would be a modern social democracy that we see in Denmark or Sweden or elsewhere. Now, a big objection, I imagine, is going to come up in that he wasn't in favor of, he never came out in favor of women's liberation. And he made excuses for slavery back in Greece. But that's tough because he waffled on that. So, for example, in one place in the politics, he says that the slave only exists for his master, and because of that, his life was miserable. He only exists to serve his master's good, doesn't serve his own good. Somewhere else, and later on in the politics, he says that the master is responsible for the happiness of the slave because the slave can't guarantee his own happiness. We have to remember that we're living in a time when the wealth was very, very low, especially in Greece, in Athens. The dirt was poor, there were no trees, there were gold mines. And so Athens lived by trade. But it was a hard-scrabble place. It wasn't like northern, France or Germany, where you had fields of wheat, or Persia, where you had wheat fields, black dirt, like earth for many miles. So slavery was enforced everywhere in the world at the time, except for maybe Persia, which had something like slavery, close to slavery, kind of feudal system. So that was his main argument for slavery, is that they didn't know what else to do. And I'm afraid he'll just have to take his lumps for that. So that's the story. I guess we can go into a circle with it.